guys, how's it going? My name is John from the Phenomenal Bunch.
And this is Sean.
And we're going to talk about the best and the worst of The Last of Us Part 2. But before we can even do a deep dive into the second part, we have to talk about the first part because it's one of our favorite games of all time.
From the characters, from the gameplay, it was just tremendous. You had Joel and Ellie, two characters that you related to so much, and the voice acting was tremendous.
I actually thought that the game was over by then, and we just thought that Joel and Ellie's story should be done. And if they do make a part 2, they should focus on different characters. But when we saw the 2016 reveal, we just couldn't help it but be excited for the next game.
So that had us wondering, like, what else is there to talk about when it comes to Joel and Ellie?
And turns out not much, but we'll get into that later. There's a lot of things that were worse than the actual game itself. I mean, we didn't hate the game, but there were a lot of bad things going on around this game, like the leaks and Naughty Dog Crunch. If you were to say what's the actual worst, it would be those two, but we're not going to go deep into those at least. And our quick thoughts on part 2 before we continue. As you can probably tell by my snarky comment before, I didn't really like the game that much. How about you?
I liked the game a lot more than you did, but then again, I was disappointed with the game, especially because of the decisions that they made. One in particular was that they had you play as the most controversial character ever, Abby.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, but she did have some of the most interesting sections of the game. And we're not going to do a deep dive into that, we'll get into that later, but right now we're going to talk about one of the best parts of this game.
Which indeed are the graphics.
Yeah, the graphics are stunning. As soon as you turn on the game, you're going to notice this.
From the environment to the characters, it's just superb. Even if you access photo mode, the graphics, they'll still look superb.
And it's fun zooming into all the little details and looking at facial expressions. Even though the graphics are some of the best parts of this game, they do come at a cost because there are tons of glitches in this game, such as pop-ins or like you getting stuck in environments or just environments completely disappearing for a few seconds. In fact, I had this one point in the game where I was running away from an enemy and the entire environment just went into white space and I was just fighting characters on a white background. And I was unfortunately not able to get any footage of this, so you're just gonna have to trust me on this one, but it was such an awkward glitch and it only went away until I died. So I don't know why these things happen, and that happened a few times during the game. We do have a launch day PS4, but we do clean it out, we do take out dust, and we do have a fan running next to it. But still, this game, when it was running, it made the PlayStation 4 extremely hot.
After sessions, I would actually touch the PlayStation 4 and notice that, hey, I would tell me, hey, why is it so hot?
Although we did have tons of glitches happen to us in the game, we did seriously enjoy this game because the combat in this game is almost perfect.
Everything from like the combat and then even the gunplay, it's just super satisfying. One of the most satisfying things that I like doing in the game is when you're having like a far range gun battle with enemies and you're just trying to aim for their head, then boom, you eventually get their head. It's like so satisfying.
And the AI is much smarter in this game because I'm more of a stealth guy, so I find it very interesting that when you're doing stealth, enemies will look around and actually go in groups as opposed to a single file line of you just killing them. And sometimes be really, really smart by distracting one and getting the other from behind because they do not just go by themselves most of the time, they go in packs, which is really interesting.
I also noticed that if they are by themselves, they'll actually look behind their shoulder.
Yeah.
One thing that I hate about video games is that whenever you're doing stealth, the enemies, they rarely look over their shoulder.
Yeah, and there are tons of times in this game where you're walking right behind an enemy and out of nowhere they'll check their back just to make sure and you get caught like that, and it's really fun.
Yeah, the AI is super smart, and one thing we also need to talk about is the weapons.
So you have a lot more silenced weapons, like the arrows from the last game were silenced. And this game is silenced as well, of course. But except you can also add silencers on your pistols, which is really nice because it makes stealth a little more of a viable option rather than just doing strangleholds all the time.
And stealth is also a recommended option. Well, I hate doing stealth in this game personally, but like they actually want you to do stealth, and in order to do stealth successfully, they'll give you these weapons.
Yeah, just to make it a little easier and a little more fun. And also, you do have to do ammo tracking because silencers do break, because literally in this game, Ellie makes silencers out of bottles, which is pretty funny. It's not all amazing though, I said almost perfect. There are a few problems here.
When you switch to Abby, it feels like you're starting the game all over again.
And it's an extra slap in the face to lose all your upgrades too, because you spent 13 hours of the game upgrading Ellie, and then when you switch to Abby, you lose all those upgrades. I would have at least liked the pill upgrades to transfer over to Abby, but no, you have to start over on those too with different branches and everything.
And I also feel that Abby is sort of a replacement for Joel because much like Joel, Abby is the brute in this game.
One of the worst parts of playing as Abby is that she has to craft shivs, which is one of the worst parts of the first game. Shivs make no sense in this world. Just get a knife that doesn't break. And I don't understand why you need to make a shiv out of blades and a duct tape. Like, just
she has so many resources. They actually have like their own stadium. So like, couldn't they have like found like a knife somewhere, maybe in the kitchen or like the stadium?
Yeah, I think Abby's usual should also include a knife in there. Let's talk about Ally AI real quick. It's pretty hit or miss. Jesse and Dina are okay. You had a lot of experiences with Lev.
When I was playing as Abby, just for the last portions of the game, I was like pretty much cussing out Lev. He would not help me whatsoever.
Yeah, he's really good in cutscenes. He's really good with the bow and arrow in cutscenes. But when you actually play as him, he barely even uses his bow and arrow. He's mostly just yelling, "Behind you! To your left! To your right!" And that's the thing with all of the AI. Obviously, combat involves different enemy types. So you got the Seraphites, they carry around bows and arrows. Big people with hammers, and they have melee weapons, and then they have guns.
I thought the Seraphites were a breath of fresh air, because in the previous game you just had like a bunch of same types of people but kind of different motives. No, but the Seraphites, they were very unique. They used bow and arrows. They whistled to alert their brothers and sisters, and it was just so cool, and it was so creative.
It was really fun facing him. I had the most fun with this enemy type, and lucky enough with Abby, you only face Seraphites for the most part until the very end. They're very creative as well, because the whistles are awesome. They actually scare you while doing stealth. There were multiple times where I thought I was caught when they whistled, and thankfully when you turn subtitles on, you can actually figure out what kind of whistle they're doing.
They're really interesting people that I want to learn more about them, but the game didn't really like tell me more about them.
You don't get much on the Seraphites besides like little drops of info, unfortunately, and they are the most interesting enemy type in the game, so that was kind of disappointing. But anyway, let's move on to the WLF. And they were pretty hit or miss in terms of combat. I mean, most of the time they were pretty fun, but I got annoyed of the constant, this has 3 dogs and a bunch of people, this place has 3 dogs and a bunch of people. There wasn't enough variety with them, because every single place you go to, they just have a few dogs, a few people. Have a few dogs, a few people. And that repeats throughout the game, which was really, really annoying.
It was really satisfying killing them. I think you felt the same way as well,
Yeah.
because like we were really heartbroken by the death of Joel. So it was so satisfying grabbing the WLF member and just like blowing their brains out.
They try to add this feature in where you have to feel bad for them, but I think they need to do more than just saying their name. Like, I don't care about Colin. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, Colin. Like, I don't care about Colin. Like, he helped kill Joel.
Or Karen.
Yeah, or Karen or whatever. I don't care. Like, and they didn't really do a good job at that, because they only make you feel bad in cutscenes, but not in actual gameplay, which is frustrating. But let's move on from WLF and talk about the last human enemy type. And these are the Rattlers. They're very, very rusty at the end of the game.
They are, and I personally felt that they should have been replaced with the Fireflies, like an updated version of the Fireflies. There's a personal connection to both Abby and Ellie, so I think the Rattlers were really, just like forced, and they shouldn't have been in the game. And they were just like kind of like redneck WLF members.
Yeah, they were a reskin of WLF. They also have dogs, they have silence weapons, all that kind of stuff. They weren't really interesting at all. I mean, at the end of the game, you see that they're really weird people and they crucify people, but they weren't interesting. They do have some of the best levels in the game, like the Streetway in Santa Barbara and the Resort are the best section in the game, for Ellie at least. So that was great, but other than that, there's not much to them. They were just kind of boring, and they got introduced as an afterthought at the end of the game. Of course, we got to talk about the Infected. In here you got the Runners, the Stalkers, which were an afterthought in the first game, but actually have an interesting game mechanic. We'll talk about it later. And then Clickers, Shamblers, which are new, and then Bloaters, and of course, the Rat King.
The Rat King was quite the specimen.
Yeah, the Rat King is one of the best sections of Abby as well, because it was just really, really fun to fight. In the end, it is just a bloater, because you do take it out the same way you do take out a bloater, but it just takes more hits. But it is really fun to look at, and it has interesting aspects to it, whereas there's multiple cordyceps infected people together.
The Rat King was something I felt that The Last of Us fans kind of wanted. Like, I think you were talking about, like, oh, what if there's like a building-sized infected person?
Yeah.
But like, I think this is like, it's like kind of close to it.
Yeah, it's as close as we're gonna get. It was pretty huge. Runners and Clickers and Bloaters are the exact same as the last game. We do need to talk about the Stalkers real quick, because they're completely different from the last game. Like I said, they were an afterthought in the first game. They were just runners.
But with like spores coming out their head, like kind of like transitioning from runners to Clickers.
But in this game, they have a weird stealth mechanic where they're doing stealth on you as you're doing stealth on them. And this sounds great on paper, but in execution, it was pretty bad. Of course, let's talk about the last one that we're saving for the end, and those are the Shamblers. I was pretty disappointed with the Shamblers. They're just weaker bloaters, and they're very easy to take out.
The thing about these ones is that they actually walked up to you and released their spores.
Yeah, instead of throwing them at you, which is pretty interesting, I guess.
Yeah, but they're super avoidable. You can just like go in the distance until like a Molotov or whatever.
And they're also easy to kill. I've had multiple instances where I've just shot 1 or 2 bullets into them and they're down. Another thing that was the best part of this game is the performances. They were absolutely fantastic, just as good as the first game.
Making a vaccine would have killed you. So I stopped them.
Oh my god.
Really the only issues are the writing and the direction, but we'll get into this later. The performances by Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, and especially Laura Bailey. Even though we didn't like Abby that much, she did a great job at portraying this character. Even though we liked her performance and we think that Laura Bailey did a great job, we did not like the character that much. And that's not Laura Bailey's fault at all. It's more of the fault of the writing and the direction of the story. And the thing is that the WLF are never treated as likable people. They should have been treated likable and have redeeming qualities from the outset. If you don't do that, we don't feel anything for them. They just become something like David, the cannibals in the first game. And we never wanted to play as David.
It was actually satisfying, like grabbing one of the WLF and shooting and blowing their brains out. Like, I should not have felt that way, and that's not the way that Naughty Dog wanted me to feel. They wanted me to feel remorse for these characters. I did not.
Yeah, and the reason why is because WLF are considered to be ruthless killers. The first thing you see when you get to Seattle is a big old sign that says, "Trespassers killed on sight." So these people do not show remorse. They don't care. They're going to kill anyone that even steps foot into Seattle. What are their redeeming qualities? Why do they do that? The only detail we get is that they have a war with the Seraphites. We don't get anything else.
Abby is very shoved down our throats. They know that we hate Abby, so they try everything in their power to make us like her.
There are little things like, as Ellie you kill dogs, as Abby you have dogs on your side and you're constantly petting them or playing fetch. And things like this are okay. They really do care about these characters and they want you to like them. But the thing is, though, they go so far into making her feel like a villain at first that it's hard for them to climb back up. They should have started with a good character and then make us understand her more. If they just started off with a full-on villain that brutally tortures and kills Joel, later on we get the story about how her father died. You're supposed to hate her for the first half of the game, but then all of a sudden in the second half of the game we're supposed to play as her understand. And the other problem with that is that her story deviates far away from Ellie and goes into a Seraphite story.
And then just playing as her, it gets really, draining. And I should not have felt that way. I should have wanted to play more and not put my controller down and not go to sleep. I should have wanted to continue playing, but no, when I was playing with Abby, I didn't really care much about the game at that point.
That's actually unfortunate because we do need to talk about one of the best aspects of this game, and that is Seattle Day 2 and 3 for Abby's side. These are fantastic levels. They're very well designed. And Lev and Yara are some of the best new characters I've seen introduced in a Naughty Dog game. They were so interesting right off the bat. And Naughty Dog is able to do that with characters. We care about them immediately. Same thing with Sarah, Bill, Sam and Henry in the first game. But Abby never reaches those heights.
How you feeling? I'm waiting on all that true strength. Cold. Cool. What? Never mind. What's going on between you and your friend Owen?
Oh my god, Lev, now?
It seemed really awkward.
Just go!
Lev and Yara save her sections. The only reason why I continued was because I wanted to see where Lev and Yara's story went. They made me want to continue playing, and I had a lot of fun during the Sky Tower and the End Village fight.
And one of my biggest problems with this game would be the ending. The ending is very, very, very rushed. The first ending that we had thought was actually the real ending was when Ellie, was at her new location with Dina and the baby. So we as fans thought, oh, okay, this is over, happy ending, I guess. But then no, so then Ellie gets the word that Abby and Lev are in Santa Barbara. So and then that puts her on another adventure to go seek revenge, which is how she has everything she wants now, but I guess not. So and then she goes to Santa Barbara with like no cuts or bruises to be seen on her, or like no damage done to her ship. You mentioned that it was kind of like in a journal, but like that's really cheap. She's in Santa Barbara and then she eventually just meets Abby towards the end.
When you get back to Abby, she has like a different set of weapons because she traded in her stuff. But with Ellie, you get back to her with the same exact weapons you had before. So it doesn't really make any sense. Also, the Rattlers, like we said earlier, are introduced like you don't get to know much about them. They're just weird and you just kill them. They're just a WLF reskin. And we forgot to mention, Tommy is completely out of his character by the time the end of the game is. In the second half of the game, Tommy is a completely different character from what he was in the first game.
And I guess this is the most controversial part of the game. Ellie finally gets Abby and they're fighting. She doesn't finish the job.
She leaves her there and lets them go, which makes the end of the game even more pointless. And to be honest, if she killed Abby, I still wouldn't have cared, because by the end I was completely drained. And when I saw her choking Abby, I was just like, you know what, if you finish it, great. If you don't, great. I
actually wanted her to finish Abby, but then she didn't. She's got like a tiny flashback of Joel.
She sees a picture of Joel in her head and is like, oh wait, maybe the 25 hours of this game are pointless, and just jumps off of her.
After Ellie decides not to finish Abby, she returns home and she's left with absolutely nothing. Dina and their baby is just gone. All the decorations are gone from the home and it's pretty much just empty. And Ellie also loses like 2 fingers, which prevents her from playing the guitar and prevents her from reliving something that Joel taught her.
Which makes everything kind of depressing at the end. And obviously, The Last of Us Part 1 isn't the happiest game out there, but they really give Ellie nothing. And Abby at the end is saved, ironically, because Ellie goes after her, and if she didn't, she would die. Just way too many conflicting messages here, and to us, that's what didn't really stick to us, because one of our favorite characters in the whole series is left with nothing at the end, but Abby can just leave free with Lev, and that just didn't connect with us personally.
So in the end, I would say that maybe Abby might have won and Ellie lost. I think people might disagree and say, no wait, Ellie won. Like, she could have ended it right then and there, but she didn't.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about this game, is that, even though we didn't like it, there's a lot of discussion that can be had about it. So even if you do like it, there's justified reasons why you would. So the last thing we're going to talk about that we didn't like about the game was the conflicting themes. And now I need to say something, because I've been listening to a lot of spoiler casts, a lot of reviews, and I wanted to also hear from the devs and the writers of this game. So I did listen to an interview that Haley Gross and Neil Druckmann did with a YouTube channel called Beyond, and I'll link it to in the description below. Haley Gross actually said something that stuck with me, and they said that at Naughty Dog, we think about the theme first. That, to me, like, if that worked for Last of Us Part 1, I don't think that idea works for a sequel to a game, because at the end of a game, you need to look at where your characters are going to go. So I feel like they were so enwrapped in thinking about what kind of theme or what kind of message they want to send, that they kind of forgot that these characters already have a very interesting end to the game. Because even though I thought Ellie and Joel's story was over, I would have liked them to focus more on that idea of the cure and Joel's action and how they affect Ellie, not other people.
So I guess the theme that they're trying to convey is that, oh no, an eye for an eye makes the world blind.
It could have worked in the story, but they do kind of mess it up a lot, because you don't really care by the end of it, and it's so long. This is one of the few games that I think it's too long, because I think games should be longer at a $60 price tag, but this one I would just like, can this end early?
So one of the greatest aspects of this game is everything with Joel and the flashbacks associated with Joel. One in particular would be the museum.
Flash! We've got more exploring to do.
Geronimo!
Nice.
Yeah, it just continues the theme of Joel doing anything for Ellie, because Ellie is a second chance at having a daughter, and it was just a nice scene. And speaking of second chances, my personal favorite scene in the whole game was near the end. And at the end, I said I was drained, but this scene brought me right back, and it was the beautiful porch scene, which we'll play right here.
You're such an asshole.
I'm not trying to.
I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life would have fucking mattered. But you took that from me.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
Yeah. I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try.
I like that.
Okay. I'll see you around.
Yep.
Alright guys, thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys. I mean, again, we didn't like the game as much as we wanted to, but if you did like the game, that's completely fine, and more power to you. We're definitely not trying to tell you to hate this game at all. If you enjoyed it or if you disliked it, let us know in the comment section below. We'll love to read it.
If we missed anything that we should have talked about, please mention in the comments.
Absolutely. And of course, our next video is going to be on Spider-Man Miles Morales, and we're very, very excited to do that one. So anyway, guys, go ahead and leave a like. Go ahead and leave your comment about what you want to see us do or what your thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. And then, yeah, of course, if you guys like this video and want to see more, click the subscribe button.
Cool, thank you guys. Have a great day.